So we'll get started in about 1 minute. We'll let Jamie let the rest of the people in. We'll get started in about 1 minute. We'll be reviewing this registration document, and I'll give you a rundown of what we're going to be doing tonight in about 1 minute. We'll get started in about 1 minute. We'll let All right, it is 7:01. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kevin McGee. I'm the athletic director at East Long Meadow High School. I'm here with Diane Savacool, the athletic trainer at the high school. We're going to be presenting about 30 minutes of information. Most of that information is going to come from the registration document that's up on the screen. The meeting's also being live on YouTube through ELHS. I'm sure that a lot of 8th grade families and new athletes will have a lot of questions along the way. Please wait till the end of the presentation, and then we will be taking questions through the chat box, and we'll answer all of your questions about the upcoming athletic season. So to start out, we are going to take a look at this registration document. It was sent out by me to all current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. It was also sent out by Dr. Allen to all of the Birchmont Park Middle School 8th graders. If you did not receive it, it is posted on the high school athletic website that we'll go to in a few minutes. So thank you for considering participation in a sport at East Long Meadow High School. Participation in ELHS athletics should be an educational and rewarding experience for student athletes, coaches, and families. So important dates: football and golf are approved by the MIAA to begin their practices and tryouts on Friday, August 20th. So mark your calendars for that if you're a football player or a golfer. Soccer, field hockey, girls volleyball, cross country, and cheerleading are scheduled to begin on Monday, August 23rd. So those are the dates that are mandated by the MIAA for the official start dates. Be aware that games and practices may be scheduled on vacations, Saturdays and Sundays. The game schedules are being finalized and are in the process of being moved to a new website. So all new athletes and families, this will be new for you, but returning athletes and families, it'll no longer be kept on the MIAA site. So schedules are all being moved to Arbiter Live, and the scheduling process is going to be finished around August 15th. So the website for Arbiter Live is on this sheet of paper. All of our home games have been inputted on that website, but it's going to take other athletic directors some time to put in all of our away games. So just be patient with that, and the schedule will be posted completely by August 15th. And you can check it out to see all of our home games, which are already in there. The most important thing that you're going to want to be aware of after tonight's meeting is these 3 steps that are critical in order to get approved to participate on that first day. So number 1 is guardians should register athletes on Family ID. Registration is critical in order to start the clearance process and for important athletic communication during the summer. This registration is the only medical, social information about the athlete the coach will receive, and it is imperative that all pertinent information is inputted. So we are asking families to register by June 13th. That's a pretty short window, but what that's going to allow us to do is to start clearing athletes. So when we get those registrations, it allows me to share email addresses with coaches. It allows us to start figuring out how many athletes want to do each sport. And then it allows the nurse's office and the trainer's office to clear those athletes with physicals and concussion testing. So number 2, families should submit a current physical exam to the high school nurse's office, 1 per year, and they're valid for 13 months. The physical exam should be a paper copy mailed to the high school main office. The MIAA rule is if a physical expires in season, then the athlete is not allowed to participate past the date of expiration. And the penalty for that is a suspension for that number of games that they participate with an invalid physical. Very important for all incoming ninth graders. So current eighth graders and any new students at ELHS must produce a valid baseline concussion score. Due to COVID-19 precautions, we are allowing students to take the test at home, and directions for this online test are on page 3 of the registration packet. It will also be posted on the athletic website that we'll review in a few minutes. It's an online test that Diane Savakul, our trainer, will tell you a little bit about later on. But that's really going to be important for current eighth graders and new students at ELHS. So varsity coaches will be emailing fall athletes and parents by June 20th. They'll be using the email addresses that you put in Family ID on the registration by June 13th. They'll introduce themselves and they'll talk about their program through the email. Some coaches will be setting up some in-person meetings that can happen over the summer. And their coaches are also going to be encouraged to videotape any of those in-person meetings so that families that may be away on vacation can get all of that information. So by June 20th, each varsity coach will reach out to each athlete and parent email that's put on Family ID. There is an athletic fee of $149. Please do not pay this athletic fee until early September. So just so that you're aware, there is that athletic fee, but we will not be collecting any money until early September. The student athlete must be academically eligible. So all incoming ninth graders are automatically academically eligible. All incoming 10th through 12th graders must have a minimum GPA of a 2.0, which is a C average for their entire previous academic year. Fall sports is different than all of the other sports during the winter and the spring. Winter and spring is based on your previous marking period grades. The fall is different and it's based on your entire previous year. So current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, you want to be aware of your current grades in your entire academic year this year. You want to make sure that you have a C average with all of those grades put together. My email address is on the registration packet, as well as the website for the athletic department. So I'm going to take you through the athletic department website, just so you can see some of the things that are on there that will really help you understand some of the things to have a good season and to be aware of what's going on. So if you go to the high school website, take a look there, and then you click on athletics, that'll bring you to the athletic website. And there'll be important announcements on the left side. All of these important announcements on the left side, we already went over through the registration packet. If you look on the right side, there's a spot to pay your athletic fee. So if you were to click on pay athletic fee, which again, you're not going to do until September, but if you click on pay athletic fee, it'll bring you to a UniPay Gold website. Currently, we're taking athletic fees for spring athletics, but in September, it'll say fall athletics, and you'd click on there and you would pay your athletic fee. If you take a look back at the athletic website, the ELHS sports programs, you can click on that. You can see all of the sports programs that we offer in the fall, the winter, and the spring, so that athletes can think about what sport they want to participate in. Also on the athletic website, you can click on coaches' email addresses right here. That'll have all of our coaches and volunteer coaches and their email addresses. Please give the varsity coaches time to reach out to you. So if you have sport-specific questions, they're going to reach out to you by June 20th. So give them some time. Please don't reach out to them until after June 20th, which will allow them the opportunity to send out a lot of information that will answer a lot of your questions. So again, varsity coaches will reach out by June 20th, but their email addresses are there if you have questions about the program after June 20th. The athletic registration packet that we're going over right now, you can click on this tab and everything I'm going over tonight will be written down there for you. The concussion testing instructions are on here also. If you didn't get an email from me or from Dr. Allen, you can click on that to see the concussion testing information. If you keep going down the screen, the sports schedules, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is brand new for this year. So if you click on sports schedules, it's going to take you to Arbiter Live. So it's no longer the MIAA website. It's now Arbiter Live. If you put in East Long Meadow High School, it'll bring you to some options, and then you're going to click on East Long Meadow High School, and then it's going to show all of the different sports teams right here. So you'll be able to view all of the different sports teams. Like I said, only our home games have been inputted. I'm a little bit ahead of some of the other athletic directors who are still inputting their home games. All of our home varsity and JV games are inputted. We do hold off on inputting freshman games until late August because we don't know who's going to have freshman teams. But let's just pretend that I was a boys varsity soccer player and I wanted to take a look to see what the schedule looks like. You want to make sure you click on the correct year. So you go to 2021, 2022, and you're going to see all of the boys varsity soccer games that have been inputted already. All of our home games are there. Only some of our away games are inputted so far. But athletic directors do have about a month to get those in. Really important for parents to do and for athletes. I would really suggest that you click on follow the team. So if you're a varsity soccer player or a JV soccer player, when you go to Arbiter Live, click on follow team. You can put in your email address and you can sign in. Anytime that I make any changes to the schedule, whether it's a postponement, a change in time, you would get an email notifying you of that change. It would be an instantaneous change. Anytime that athletic directors change the schedule, you would get an email. So I really encourage parents especially to follow the team of the athlete of your child. Taking a look back at the athletic website, the family ID registration, again, the link is on the registration packet, but you can also click on family ID. And when you go on family ID, you'll be able to view how to register for fall sports. So you get to this website when you click on family ID, you go down to ELHS 2021 fall season, you click on that, and then you register your athlete. Registrations do take about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's really important information for coaches to have about your about the student athlete. So that's the athletic website, which is really useful for all the things that we're going over. I'm going to go back to the registration document to page 2. On page 2, this is a top 10 list of reminders that I've come up with that over the past 5 years doing this job that really families should be aware of. And some of these are changes from last year. So I'm going to go through this packet. So based on the co-curricular attendance policy, if a student is absent, attends less than a full day of school, or comes in late after 8 a.m. on the day of a game or practice, or on the Friday preceding a weekend event, he or she will not be allowed to participate or attend unless his or her attendance has been cleared by the athletic director. If the above happens, then the athlete or parent guardian should contact the athletic director and request a waiver. So this is really a policy to make sure that athletes are putting school first and that they're attending school. If at any time an athlete comes to school after 8 a.m. or needs to be dismissed from school, what I do ask is for the parent or guardian to email me. Just let me know if it was a doctor's appointment, if it was a miscellaneous family commitment, if a car broke down, any of those reasons would be approved. But I do want them coming from the parent or guardian so that we are all putting athletics first, that we're all putting academics first, and that students are going to be in school so that they can then participate on the sports team. So if there's any issues with that, please contact me so that we can make sure that they're putting school first and that they're in school on those days. Participation in athletic programs at ELHS is a privilege, not a right. Student athletes should model positive behavior on the field, off the field, in the stands, as spectators, and in the digital world. Number 3 is the MIAA bona fide team member rule. It states members of a team are not allowed to miss a high school practice or competition in order to participate in a non-school activity in any sport recognized by the MIAA. There is a potential MIAA waiver that students can apply for, but this must be done with the athletic director during the first week of the season. The new MIAA penalty, if no waiver is done, is a 1-game suspension for the first offense. So this used to be a 25% suspension from the rest of the season or from a future season. The MIA has changed that rule for the upcoming season that the penalty would be a 1-game suspension. Saturday and Sunday practices are exempt from this rule, but they will be handled by the head coach. So it doesn't mean that athletes can miss Saturday and Sunday practices without any penalty. it does mean that the coach would then talk about what the consequence would be for missing Saturday and Sunday practices for other sports teams. And the MIA has made it very clear that they will not approve any waivers that conflict with postseason practices or games. So the waivers are only for the regular season. Number 4 is about any time that there's any type of concern that an athlete or a parent has. We do ask that you schedule a time to speak with the coach. If that meeting doesn't go well, feel free to reach out to me to schedule a time to talk with me and possibly the coach also. And if that meeting doesn't go well, feel free to reach out to the principal to talk about that concern. If you ever have a serious concern, please be prepared to write an official letter of complaint with your name attached to the statement. But one thing that we did back in the fall of 2019 that's been really beneficial is student athletes at the end of their season do anonymous student experience surveys based on their athletic season. So any current athletes, you'll be getting an email tomorrow or Friday from me about your current spring season. Those are anonymous. They're meant to improve the athletic department, and they're meant to really get the student athletes' feedback on where we can improve. So if there are any concerns, feel free to bring those up with the coach, myself, or the principal, but there's also an avenue for athletes that would prefer to be anonymous to do that experience survey at the end of the season. Number 5, please understand the rescheduling process is very complex and many things must be taken into consideration. Transportation availability, referees, facilities, opposing school approval, East Long Meadow High School school events, coaches availability, trainer availability, holidays. My least favorite, environmental factors, which has really changed athletic schedules dramatically over the past couple of years. Weather, the MIA PVIAC scheduling guidelines all play a part in the athletic schedule that is typically created 6 months before the season begins. Again, schedules are complete for the fall for varsity and JV teams. We're just waiting for the away games to be inputted by athletic directors at other schools. Number 6 is the chemical health policy. Please note that regulations apply to student behavior 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, inclusive of the first allowable day of fall practice through the end of the academic year or final athletic event. A student shall not, regardless of the quantity, use, consume, possess, buy, sell, or give away any beverage containing alcohol, any tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, vape pens, and all similar devices, marijuana, steroids, or any controlled substance. There's a 25% suspension for the first offense and 60% for the second offense. Number 7, in regards to booster clubs are considered a separate entity from ELHS. No student athlete should ever be required to participate in booster club activities, and playing time will never be impacted by booster club participation. Booster clubs are awesome. I don't want to take away from that, but it's just important that we all understand that they are separate from the high school and are optional for our athletes, but they do a lot of great things for our athletic program. Number 8, if an athlete ever has a injury on an ELH team that involves extensive medical bills, then please contact the athletic trainer for supplemental free insurance that may help with the reimbursement of some medical bills. So the injury has to occur during high school sports. I've gotten great feedback from families that have utilized this insurance. The high school does pay a pretty large amount of money for this insurance. So I really encourage parents, if you have any type of serious injury, reach out and apply for that free insurance that can supplement a lot of your bills. Again, there's no guarantee with it, but I can tell you that parents and families have given really good feedback. Otherwise, we would not be purchasing that insurance. Number 9, ELHS uniforms should only be worn by the student athlete on game days. Uniforms should not be given to friends or family to wear. All uniforms must be returned to the head coach at the end of the season. We do have a limited budget. Keeping track of the uniforms is really important. One of the things we're doing this spring is we're collecting all uniforms at the last game. The high school is going to be cleaning all of those uniforms, getting them ready for the next season, but athletes will be returning them after their last game. So that's one way that we're trying to make sure that uniforms don't disappear. Again, it helps the athletic budget, but it can also really hurt the athletic budget if a group of kids keep their uniforms, because then we have to make tough decisions with our budget on how to get uniforms for a team. Number 10, support other ELHS athletic teams and cheer for them at their games. Please do not say anything negative toward the opposing team, fans, or officials. So I am really optimistic that next year we will have student sections in the bleachers, especially outdoors. I want our student sections to be loud. I want them to have a lot of school spirit. But I'm very clear with our student section that at no time should they be saying anything negative toward the opposing team, fans, or officials. It's real clear cut with that expectation. But at the same time, there's nothing better than a home athletic event with a student section that's very spirited and energetic and loud and positive and cheering on our team. Sportsmanship is a priority at ELHS. Student athletes' attendance at athletic events will be restricted if they are not representing ELHS in a positive way. So that's all of the information that I have for you tonight. Diane Savakul, our athletic trainer, is going to go over some information, and then both her and I will be answering all of your questions. And one thing I would like to just follow up on is, again, I'm very optimistic about next year. This spring has been awesome. It's a lot of return to normalcy. I do think fall outdoor athletic events are going to feel very normal next fall. The indoor events, I'm still a little bit apprehensive and concerned about. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I do think that the outdoor athletic events are going to look very similar to other fall seasons, not including this past year. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to pass it off to Diane Savakul, and then I'll be available for questions.
Okay, I'm going to start with basic concussion testing instructions. Again, because of COVID, we are allowing you guys to take the testing at home. The biggest thing is it must be taken on a computer, not on a tablet or a phone. That is an issue we've had this past year when people have been taking it at home, that they're not using the proper thing, I guess. So any student who has already participated in athletics at East Long Meadow does not need to retake it for this fall. But all upcoming 8th graders and new students must take and pass the testing, which is for a valid or passing test before they participate in a fall sport. It's extremely important that the student athlete is the person taking the test. We're asking parents and guardians to enforce this honor system to make sure it's not a friend or relative taking the concussion test. It's critical that student athletes take their own tests. If a student athlete does not take his or her own test, this will delay and alter the safety of the athlete's return to practice after a head injury. Completing the testing is not enough to participate on the first day. The student athlete must have a valid passing test. The student athlete will not know if he or she has passed it until the athletic trainer reviews the results of the test. Due to the summer vacation, I'm asking that the kids can take it before June 30th. I will be definitely checking by then, but in the month of July, it will be limited checking. So if you email me and let me know you've taken it, I will check it, but it may be limited checking at that point, but I will be back August 1st checking for sure. Student athletes may only take one test, concussion baseline test per day. If they take more than one a day, it's considered invalid because of the process of the testing. Any student athlete who is unable to take the concussion baseline at home will be permitted to schedule a time with me to take it. If you'd like to schedule a time, please email me. My email is listed right there. Tips for taking the testing: make sure you read the directions before you start each section. Take your time, make sure you're hitting the correct buttons for each test. Some of them require the space bar, some require enter or the right or left arrow keys on the computer. If you don't follow the directions, you'll have to retake it. Due to invalid score, I cannot offer individual sections of the test. So all 13 sections need to be retaken if you do any of them incorrectly. There are practice tests for most of the sections, which will also help prevent invalid scores. Take the test in the quiet environment where you're able to concentrate. And the instructions for registering on baseline, the concussion baseline, are listed there as well. I'm not going to go over all of them. It's also on the athletic website. But the biggest thing is make sure you're using capital letters and entering your name the way that it's supposed to be entered. Okay. Physical exams must be current, which Mr. McGee already said. Again, if it expires during the season, you cannot participate past that date of expiration. So if your physical expires September 6th, on September 7th, you cannot participate without a new and current physical. It's the parent's responsibility to make sure that the physical is current and up to date. Physicals are kept on file in the nurse's office for future sports clearances, but please check with the health office if you're unsure of the date of your child's previous physical. When handing in a new copy, especially now in the fall, please indicate your child's sport so that we can better organize our paperwork that we get in the preseason. The health history form that is on the MIA forms are now covered by Family ID. Students will be medically cleared once the health office has a current physical and has received any additional clearances that we may need from additional medical professionals. So if your kid has a diabetic or cardiac or asthma or anything that's limiting their ability to participate in sports, we will ask for an additional clearance from a specialist. So when filling out the Family ID, please make sure to fully complete all fields, especially those involving emergency contacts, previous injuries, medical conditions, medications, health insurance, and previous head injuries. Any and all medical concerns or conditions must be indicated while filling out this information. Also, as a part of this registration, you and your child must verify that you have reviewed the signs and symptoms of concussion and will report such symptoms to me, the coach, the athletic director, or school nurse. If the info isn't on Family ID, the athletic department staff, including the athletic trainer and EMTs, will not know of your child's medical history or need should they need to be transported by an ambulance. This is very important because this is the only information that we get. And if I'm unaware of a condition or a coach is unaware of a condition, it can lead to issues when they're transported by ambulance. Anytime a kid is seen by a doctor, we need a doctor's note regarding the injury or illness. Please make sure the injury or illness or reason for the visit is clearly stated so that we know the student is cleared to return to sports. The only acceptable clearances are those from medical doctors, DO, PO, or nurse practitioner. Per ELHS athletic policy, chiropractors and physical therapists cannot write clearance notes for return to sports. To make your life easier, get a doctor's note every time you go. And if your child is being followed by a physical therapist or chiropractor and your primary care would allow it, have them write a note saying they can be cleared by the physical therapist or chiropractor. Please give the notes to the nurse during the school day or to the athletic trainer after school so that it can be given to the nurse the next day. Completed medical forms should be dropped off at the health office, and doctor's notes can be directly faxed to 413-525-9781. Concussion baseline testing is given before the start of the sports seasons at East Long Meadow. Again, all freshmen and new participants at ELHS. The baseline testing is not testing to see if your student has a concussion. The baseline test is taken so the athletic department staff has a guidance of normal reaction time, memory, and cognitive abilities, which is used as a reference point when a student sustains a concussion. After a suspected concussion or a diagnosis of concussion, athletes need to be first cleared by their primary care. We do not accept urgent care or emergency department doctors to clear them to return due to the fact that they are not familiar with their normal status that they have when they go to a primary care. If a concussion was diagnosed, the primary care must clear the athlete to begin the return to play process with the athletic trainer. This process first involves taking the post-concussion test and returning to within a reasonable level of the original baseline testing. The post-testing results are used to determine if the student has returned to the pre-concussion levels. After post-testing is normal, the student will begin a progression of physical activities for a total of 6 days, as long as there is no return of symptoms, before they will be completely medically cleared to return to athletics. If your athlete has a return of symptoms or has continued symptoms or is unable to pass the post-test during this time period, they must be reevaluated by their primary care before continuing. All of this information is listed on the ELPS district website under the athletic tab. If your student is injured at practice and the injury is not reported to the coach or athletic trainer, it is your responsibility as a parent to notify the athletic director, athletic trainer, or school nurse of the injury so we can track the progress of the injury and the student's return to activity. Again, get a note to clear the student once the injury or illness is over. Mr. McGee also mentioned if there is a significant medical bill associated with your injury, you can contact me, and I do have the school insurance forms I will fill out for you and give to you without any issue. Per East Long Meadow Public School policy, students exhibiting signs of illness must be free of an elevated temperature for at least 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, and must be free of symptoms of gastrointestinal illnesses for 24 hours as well, before returning to sports or school. If your child is sick, have them stay home and rest and get better. This is one small but important way to prevent illnesses from taking out an entire team. Per East Long Meadow training guidelines, any suspected rash or skin condition that has the potential to be transmitted to another student will be required to be evaluated by a physician. There is a medical clearance form that must be completed by the evaluating physician. The physician will give me directions as to how the area must be covered and treated. Written instructions, including diagnosis, treatment, such as medication that is being prescribed with any side effects, how long the area must be treated, and what means need to be used for covering it before they are permitted to return to any competition should be indicated. Typically, the area must be covered for the entire course of the treatment. Again, this is something that can be transmitted to other athletes, so we want to make sure that we're treating the correct issue. The state mandated MIAA heat policy will be followed for all practices and games. If the temperature and humidity levels are at a high level, practices may need to be modified and games may potentially be postponed. Due to this policy, your child's practice times and locations may change on short notice. This policy states that practices need to be modified or changed according to the reading on the wet bulb globe thermometer. I will be using that to accurately determine the weather conditions and its effects on practices and the health of athletes during that time. Please make sure your student has all of their inhalers, EpiPens, diabetic supplies, and any other medical supplies they may need with them at all times. I do not have these things to give them if they need them in an emergency. In addition, I do not have any over-the-counter medications such as Advil, Aleve, Tylenol, Benadryl, etc. to give your child. The ELHS department, athletic department will follow all Massachusetts Department of Public Health, East Long Meadow Department of Public Health, and MIAA guidelines, precautions, and restrictions as they relate to COVID-19 in the fall. Further information on these guidelines, precautions, and restrictions will be sent out to ELHS families in August. Any questions or problems, feel free to call me. Email me, sorry, my email's right there, and I will see you in the fall.
All right, so that's pretty much everything we have to present tonight. I want to go over a couple quick things. Again, the video is going to be posted on the LCAT YouTube page. Varsity coaches will be getting in contact with athletes and parents based on the email addresses on Family ID by June 20th. Most important thing from tonight, we're asking all families to register on Family ID by June 13th. That's the most important thing I'd like you to take from tonight. And then one thing that I did not mention is I do communicate through student school email addresses also to remind them about missing concussion testing or missing physicals or their academic eligibility. So student athletes, you should be checking your school email from me also. And that's a way for me to send out a bunch of emails. I can send them out to 40 student email addresses at a time saying you're missing your concussion testing or you're missing your physical. So I can't emphasize enough. Student athletes, please check your emails over the summer. There's nothing worse than showing up on the first day and finding out that you're not cleared to participate. So check your school emails and I'll be giving you updates. So at this time, any questions that families have, I believe there's a chat option for question and answers. If you have any questions, feel free to type those in. Not seeing any questions. Jamie, am I looking at the right spot for questions?
Yeah, there's a Q&A button. It just says no open questions. If anyone is unable to type for any reason, they can raise their hand. I can send them in and they can ask their question if that isn't working, but it should be.
So we might be having some technical difficulties on questions. Oh, I got a question now. All right, got it. Thanks, Jamie. All right, so my freshman is starting on the fall. Do I follow the varsity coach or non-varsity coach? That's a great question. So the varsity coaches, their job is to be they're responsible for their entire program. So the varsity coach is responsible for the program. The varsity coach is responsible for setting up the tryout process. So leading up to the season, varsity coaches will be communicating with all athletes in their program, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. After that tryout process, which is usually 3 to 5 days, then teams will get split up into a varsity team, a JV team, and then potentially a freshman team in some sports. That's where that paid coach, the JV and freshman coach, would then start communicating with families. But we do rely on the varsity coach to run the program. And during those first 3 to 5 days, it'll be the varsity coach. And leading up to that point, the varsity coach that's going to be communicating with the families. The next question, do we give the current physical to the high school nurse or trainer for an incoming freshman? Another really good question. So all incoming freshmen, current 8th graders, please mail a copy of the physical or drop a copy of the physical off at the high school. So even if that physical went to Birchland, it's very beneficial for us to have a paper copy at the high school. So don't rely on that physical being transferred from Birchland. Please send that physical to the high school main office through mail or dropping it off at the high school. The physical is needed at the time of registration. Can we register and provide physical at a later time? Yes, so real good question. I apologize for the confusion on the physical. So the physicals need to be in ideally a couple days before that first day of practice. So if your health insurance doesn't allow for a physical until August 15th, that's fine for you to bring in that physical August 15th, 5 days before we start. If you have a valid physical that does not expire, if you can send that into the high school this week, that will help us clear those athletes. But if you can't get a physical until August, don't go out and get a physical before then. It's okay for you to send in a valid physical in August. As long as you have that scheduled and you have a plan for it to come in, we will be able to clear that athlete with the physical before their first day, whether it's August 20th or August 23rd. But as long as the family has that plan to get that physical to us. Again, if you have the valid physical, please send it in this week. If you have a physical coming up over the summer, send it in after that appointment. The next question, my son will be a senior next year and turns 19 in January 2022. Do I need extra paperwork? Yes. So if you can reach out to me, there are some MIAA guidelines with age. I believe since it's January, I believe you're going to be okay. But if you can email me that question about the age, and I can double check the MIAA rule. I believe it's before September 1st, but email me that question and we can look at it a little bit closer. Do we need to register for all freshman sports now, or is this just for fall sports? So this registration on Family ID is just for fall sports. We'll keep this athletic video up for anybody that missed it, and all of these policies and rules will carry over to the winter. But as far as the registration on Family ID, that we're hoping that families register by June 13th, that is only registering for those fall sports. There will be a separate registration for winter sports, and then there'll be another separate registration for spring sports. Once you register once for an athlete, future registrations are very easy because it auto generates almost all of those fields. So it does allow for quick registration in the winter and the spring once you've registered once. But this registration is just for fall sports. Does my son have to do the concussion test now if he is not planning on a fall sport, but is planning to do a winter sport? So he's not required to do it now, but I would suggest doing it in the next week or two, maybe once school's kind of slowed down a little bit and he has a little bit of free time. I would suggest getting that concussion test out of the way. It's good for 2 years. And probably 10 to 20% of eighth graders, the first time that they take the test, produce a invalid score because they do one of the parts wrong. So in order to just get that checked off the box, I would definitely encourage all eighth graders to do the concussion testing in the next few weeks. Ideally, before then, so we can start clearing you. But again, there will be some athletes that get invalid scores that will need to take it again. If you get an invalid score, our athletic trainer, Diane Savacool, will email the student athlete's email address, the school email address, to let them know that their score was invalid. So other questions, especially from eighth grade families, I know that this is mostly geared towards eighth grade families and also geared towards new athletes at East Long Meadow High School. And I know that typically families, the thing that they come to sports night for is to hear the varsity coach. And varsity coaches, again, they'll be sending out emails by June 20th. Some varsity coaches will be setting up in-person meetings. Some will be setting up Zoom meetings, but you will get communication from those varsity coaches by June 20th. And they'll talk about the first few days, what the process is going to be with tryouts, how they're going to handle playing time, how they'd like you to communicate with them. They'll talk about how they'll establish roles with the athletes. So another question is, will parents and students be emailed regarding tryouts for winter sports? Yes, so for winter sports, we'll do something very similar to what we're doing with fall sports. I'll send out the registration packet for winter sports. That'll be around November 1st. So families will get registration packets around November 1st for winter sports. You'll register for those winter sports, and then the coaches will reach out to you. We'll hopefully be able to meet in person with all the varsity coaches in November. Winter sports always start the Monday after Thanksgiving. So those winter sports start the Monday after Thanksgiving, and spring sports, they always start the third Monday in March. So just on your calendars, you can kind of mark those days down. And the winter sport registration and communication will all happen in November, and then that'll all start the Monday after Thanksgiving. Other questions from any families? You do all have my email address. I always try to email back within 24 hours of school time. Please send out all those questions in June. I will be away from my computer for most of July. So there's no high school sports that happen in July. So any questions and concerns, June's a great month for me and the athletic trainer, and then we'll start getting back and getting ready in August for the start of football and golf on August 20th, and for all of the other fall sports on August 23rd. So thank you all for listening. Again, feel free to email us with questions, and we're looking forward to the upcoming fall season. Thank you.